Welcome to video 3 for the Intermediate Excel module. In this final video, we're just going to enhance our pivot table a little bit. So let's go to our data set. Make sure you added a column on your stock data tab for risk level and that you've populated that with a VLOOKUP. We're going to actually use that data here, so it's important that you have that populated. If you don't have that completed or you don't know how to complete that, then go back and watch video 2B. Let's look at our pivot table. Right now, all we see in our field list is ticker symbol, but in our original data, we added company name and risk level. Even though we added that data to the original tab, the pivot table doesn't know that yet. To tell the pivot table to grab the new data, we need to go to the Analyze tab up here at the top of your menu. If you don't see the Analyze tab up here, then it may be labeled something different. So if you do see a tab that says something like Pivot Table Tools and there's a tab here, go ahead and click on that. If you don't see a tab at all, then make sure you click into your pivot table. If you're off of your pivot table, the field list goes away and those tabs related to the Pivot Table Tools go away as well. So click into your pivot table and click one of the tabs up here. It should say something like Analyze, just depending on which version of Excel you have. So I'm going to click Analyze. And then I want to find the refresh button. So I'm going to hit refresh. When I hit refresh, the company name and the risk level now show up, which is really nice. This works as long as the additional information we added was added inside of that table. So if I had added a column over here, then Excel would not know to include that in the pivot table. I would have to actually, within the pivot table, change the data source here to add column K. As long as I add that information within the existing table, Excel will automatically know to pull it into the data set, and when I hit refresh, it'll show up over here. So again, click the Analyze tab, refresh, and you should see company name and risk level in your field list for the pivot table. This time, instead of using ticker symbol to represent the company, let's use company name. So I'm going to drag that down here into row, and I'm going to drag ticker symbol out. That's the nice part of a pivot table is I can continue to move it around like that. Even during a presentation, I can move it around to show the audience a different perspective on the data. So right now I'm showing average adjusted close for each of the stocks using their names instead of their ticker symbols. I want to give you a task. I want you to look at the average adjusted close by risk level for each company. So pause the video here and take a minute to think about how you could represent in this pivot table the average adjusted close price by risk level for each company. Go ahead and pause. All right, let's come back together. Hopefully you were able to figure it out on your own, but let's walk through and I'll show you some tips and tricks along the way. In order to show the adjusted close by risk level, so I want to add categories here to categorize by risk level, I'm going to pull risk level into the rows. The order of the fields that I have in this area matter. Right now, I'm showing it by risk level for each company. So the risk level is the overarching category, and then I have companies listed under that risk level. If I had put risk level under company, then Excel would do that as well. It would put the company name, and then under that, it would put the risk level. That doesn't make sense in this case because there's not multiple risk levels per company. There's multiple companies per risk level. So I'm going to start with risk level here. Now we can see the data for risk level and then each of the companies. There are a few things I can do with this table. I can right-click, for example, on the table, and I can change the order of high, medium, and low. Let's do that with high. Right now, Excel is showing us high, low, medium because that's alphabetical order. Excel doesn't know that there's another logical order like low, medium, high. So I can right-click here and select Move and say Move High to the end. And now it's showing me an order of low, medium, high, which is much more logical than alphabetical order. I can also sort within the data I can sort by either alphabetical, or I can sort by the stock price if I want to. So I have some options for sorting as well. I can also expand and collapse these columns. So I could collapse the entire field, and then it just shows low, medium, high, and it's the average close for that whole category. Or I can expand them out with this plus sign and just show the medium stocks. Or I can right click again and expand the entire field, or expand just one category that way as well. The best part of a pivot table is it is easily adjustable. You really can't mess it up, and it is very fixable. So if you want, go ahead and just play around with some different things that you might be able to find out about this data by pulling them into columns, rows, values. For example, I could pull risk levels into columns. It's not as pretty as the way that I had it before, but it could still be useful information. And I certainly didn't mess up the pivot table because I can just pull risk level back into the rows over here. So play with that for a little bit. You might even insert a slicer. We could do a slicer for date, for example, and then we could just select the dates that we wanted to include here. So if we wanted to select all of January, for example, we could select the first day and then hit Shift and select the last day, and it'll select all of January for us. And now our pivot table just shows us the average adjusted close by risk level for each company for January. So you have lots of tools that you can use to play around in the pivot table. Go ahead and do that. Again, you can't mess it up. And if you save it first, you really can't mess it up. So we'll end the video here, but I recommend playing around with the pivot table a little bit more and see what other information you can find out about the data. You could also start doing some pivot tables with data that you have for work or personal data as well.